Hi everybody, it's Stewart A. Swerdlow.
And Janet Swerdlow.
And this is the Expansions News Podcast for the very first week in April 2015. And it's Easter week and Passover week and who knows what other week.
Well, Blood Moon week.
It's Blood Moon. We missed it.
We did?
It was this morning like for 3 minutes and I missed it. Well, what can you do about that? We'll see what the results are.
We talked about that in our prophecy webinar. If you haven't watched that, be sure you catch that because that was all about the blood moons.
But I have some very interesting news, as we always do. And I'm going to start with the United States and our dear friend, Barack Obama. Because you know what he's done? Now he's created a federal government program so that the children of illegal aliens can come here for free. And not only just come here, he's going to fly them and get them from Central America and bring them here.
This was kind of like kidnapping.
Kind of. A new State Department and Department of Homeland Security program says that the best way to stop the surge of illegal children crossing the border is by giving their U.S.-based parents, the parents who've already come here, the option to apply to have their kids, quote, picked up and put on a plane without a penny. Now, doesn't that mean they don't need a penny, or they don't get a penny, or it's not going to cost a penny?
I still think it sounds like kidnapping.
Well, it goes. Let me explain. Now, it says that the parents have to have some sort of legal status. Well, everyone has a legal status, whether it's illegal or legal. It's a status, right? So that means everybody. And it says that would include permanent residents and even illegal immigrants. And we're given a permit, work permit, and a deportation reprieve under President Obama's recent executive actions. And it would be all children under 21 living in El Salvador, Guatemala, or Honduras who could apply.
Just those 3 countries.
Well, so far. I guess once they empty those out, they'll go into the other
next
ones.
Right.
Yeah. And it says that many Americans will be surprised to learn that illegal aliens here in the United States are getting the Obama administration to go and get their children, and at our expense. Well,
I just reported on all the camps in Arizona where there are hundreds and thousands of children waiting.
Yeah, well, guess what? They're going to open the gates.
Right.
And the thing is, one person interviewed said, well, why do we even have a border? And that's the whole purpose of it, because, you know, Obama is an illegal alien anyway, so he's of course going to do this for his, people like him. And it said, so far, here's the interesting, the State Department has not provided a cost for the plane tickets or the benefits that follow upon the arrival. And when the spokeswoman, Marie Harf, was asked, how much will this cost? Her answer was, the price tag? I don't know. Like, I don't know, I'm sure.
No, it sounds like
a valley girl. Like, okay, that's really confident. You're doing this program, and you don't know how much it's going to cost. That means they know how much it's going to cost, but they don't want to say because it's outrageous, and we're all paying for it.
So anyway, Congress or the representatives can stop
Well,
this?
it says under this program, they would quote refugees that have access to government benefits that other illegal aliens don't. These children will get free education, food stamps, medical care, and living expenses. And one of the people who was people who exposed this says, "My gosh, what does the rule of law mean if you break the law to get here, and then you get the government to bring the rest of your family?"
But on the other hand, which I've kind of said this for a long time, is they're trying to raise workers. And so this is a new class of worker.
They're trying to create, or they are creating, the North American Union, and Hillary says she wants to include Central America and the Caribbean, and that's what this is about.
Ronald Reagan. Well, they're also...
Ronald Reagan said he wanted an economic and political unit from Alaska to Argentina. And?
They're creating it. And like I said, however, with these children, they won't know any better, and they will be loyal to the government for what they get.
Well, many of the senators and representatives said that this would increase their their voting base.
Absolutely. That's what I said. These children will remember. I mean, you go from abject poverty to what the government's going to give them. They will be loyal to the government.
Meanwhile, people who are born here who have no jobs and do not get crap.
Well, that's the point.
So maybe they should immigrate to Guatemala and then just come here back.
But that's how they change things. You change things by getting inside, and you change it from the inside out, and that's what they're doing. That's how you take it over.
This is not the U.S. I know.
Well, no.
No. Well, the whole world isn't the same.
That's right.
Anyway, now let's go to another mystery. Well, an old mystery from last year, flight Malaysian Airlines 370, right? That they're looking in this weird place in the South Indian Ocean, which of course it isn't there, so they're never going to find it. But you know why? Because local inhabitants of one of the Maldive islands of Kudahuvadu, now you say that 10 times fast, Kudahuvadu, claim they saw a low-flying jet in the morning. The Malaysian Airlines disappeared. The island is over 5,000 kilometers away from where they're searching. But the inhabitants said the plane was so close and low, they could even make out the plane's doors.
Wow.
And even the logos and everything on there. But nobody has interviewed them. Or they've asked researchers or investigators to come, nobody would come. You know why? Because that island, and if we post the link, you'll see it on the map, the flight path right over that island is right towards Diego Garcia Island in the Indian Ocean, where I told you the plane was being held. The plane would have gone right over this island. Proof.
Now, I want to ask you a question. What's happening with that crash in France?
Nothing.
That's what I mean.
They blamed the co-pilot. You know, the whole thing was contingent on the pilot needing to go to the... What if he didn't need to go to the bathroom? What would have happened?
But listen to me. That whole crash thing is gone from the news.
Well, there's little tidbits here and there.
I haven't seen it.
Because they've already condemned him. They said what happened. No more news. No reason. No reason.
But didn't you find something about somebody thought maybe... remember the twin of the pilot?
Yeah, but my other people in Europe said that doesn't even have the same last name. He looks like him, but
not him.
But that's another whole story going on.
But I just thought it was so strange. We don't hear anything about that.
No, because they already did the damage control. They already blamed the co-pilot. Can't defend themselves. Done. You know, plant evidence to make it look like... You know, if you're going to commit suicide and you're depressed, why would you need to do... He was a glider. He could have taken a glider and killed himself that way. Why would you need to take all the... It doesn't make sense.
None of it
Absolutely
makes sense.
No sense.
And it's off the news.
The real story... Well, I told you all the real story. Watch our other podcast that we've done in the past. Now, let's go to Iran. And that's amazing Iranian deal that the U.S. made this week in Switzerland, last week, with the Iranians. Let's look at the 7 main points of the deal. Number 1, centrifuges. Iran would reduce the total of 19,000 centrifuges to 10,000, which are still spinning today. Well, gee, that makes a big difference. 2, uranium enrichment. They would only enrich to 3.67% and only for civil use, and that will be for 15 years. Well, I think they could do other things in 15 years. 3, breakout time. This is confusing. I mean, it's the period of time that would take for Iran to acquire the material it needs to make one nuclear weapon, which they think now is only 2 to 3 months away. They'd extend that to 1 year. Oh, good. That's good. They have an extra few months to get the weapons they need. Yeah. 4, it's the Fordo facility. This is the Iranians' Fordo nuclear reactor would stop enriching uranium for at least 15 years. It will still keep 1,000 centrifuges there, but of course it's buried under 200 feet of rock under the side of a mountain, so who the heck's going to know what's going on? 5, research and development. Iran can continue its research and development on enrichment, and that the country can maintain its current facilities. Oh, that takes a lot away from them, doesn't it? 6, inspections. Iran will be required to provide inspectors from the International Atomic Energy Agency, which is the UN's nuclear watchdog, to access to all its declared facilities. So what about the undeclared facilities? So that they can ensure there's no potential for military-related deal. Well, the UN has been so good with monitoring other countries like Syria and Afghanistan. They should do well here too, right?
Just unbelievable.
Yeah, brilliant. I mean, John Kerry, thank God he was never president. Sanctions lifted. Here's the best part, number 7. The United States and the European Union would lift their nuclear-related sanctions on the Iranian economy, and lifting those sanctions could bring the country major financial rewards. Well, that's great. So threaten everybody with nuclear weapons, and then we will reward you. That sounds brilliant, like a brilliant plan to me. I don't know why it took them so long. Now, Israel, which was not at this negotiation, of course, has vowed to act alone, if necessary, to prevent Iran from obtaining nuclear weapons. And they said a military intervention by Israel could set back Iran's program for 2 or 3 years, probably. Now, in the past, the Israeli Air Force has removed nuclear reactors in Iraq and Syria in secret missions, and they said there's a chance that Israel could get help from its neighbors like Saudi Arabia, who also are afraid of Iran as much as Israel is. And of course, the relations between Israel and Saudi Arabia have become closer over shared concerns of Iran's nuclear ambitions, and that if Saudi Arabia is so upset over nuclear progress that the Saudi Arabians could even go as far as giving Israel access to its airspace, which they already have, to reach Iran, and even permission to land and refuel on Saudi territory. Now, France has said that the U.S. caved in to make this deal so they'd look good in front of the world. And as much as I do not like Israel's Netanyahu, this time I have to agree with him, and he said that the deal sucks and is dangerous, and I agree. Well, now here's my favorite story of the day.
Is it about Russia?
Well, you're looking
No,
over
seriously,
my notes.
You love Russia. Anything to do with Russia.
You may recall, people, that I have mentioned to you about Russian army, or I should say Soviet army in the 30s and 40s finding so-called Yeti, or what they believe to be Neanderthal people in the Caucasus region. And I also mentioned in one of my seminars about a woman that had been captured there in the 1800s who might have been a Yeti or a Neanderthal. Well, guess what? Her DNA was analyzed, and they call her the 19th century ape woman, 6 foot 6 inches, in a Russian. She was a Russian serf who could outrun a horse. Can you outrun a horse?
I don't think so.
Well, I could if the horse was paralyzed. Yeah. She had enormous athletic power, and a genetics professor has analyzed the DNA of 6 of her living descendants. That means someone had sex with her and had children with her.
I think they said that.
Okay.
They said that.
Some of those Russian men were a little desperate, okay? But the professor, Brian Sykes of the University of Oxford, claims that this towering woman, who they named Zana, lived in the 19th century Russia and appeared half human, half ape, and could have been the fabled Yeti. They describe her as 6 foot 6 inches tall, discovered in the Caucasus Mountains between Georgia and Russia, and had all the characteristics of a wild animal, covered in thick auburn hair.
Yeah, but I think they meant all over her body.
Well, we'll check that later. Now, this wild woman, as they call her, was found lurking in the remote region of Okhmakchir in the Republic of Abkhazia.
You
Don't
need
want to say that.
Spitz or something?
Yeah. She was captured by a local merchant in the 1850s, and who hired a group of hunters to subdue and shackle her in the mountainous region. She was kept, the poor thing, was kept in a ditch surrounded by sharpened spikes, and then sold from owner to owner until she came to serve this nobleman, Edgi Ganaba. Her resemblance was that of a wild beast, and they said the most frightening feature was her expression, which was pure animal.
Now I want to go back to her having children. Having heard of all of this.
She could outrun a horse and swim across the Moskva River even when it rose to violent high tides. It was a warrior woman there. Zana was eventually tamed by the nobleman who brought her as a servant and kept her on his estate and apparently did other things with her.
Apparently.
And accounts from that time claim she was incredibly muscular, slept outdoors, and ran around naked.
Well, she was all covered with auburn hair.
Yes, until she died in 1890.
Okay, so
Now,
how did they find her descendants is what I want to know.
because they knew in this village that she had like many, many children. In fact, she got pregnant every year. Some of the children she went to wash in the river and drowned them because, you know. And so eventually the local townswomen, every time they saw her, she was giving birth, they took the baby from her. And then they raised them. And
I want to see pictures of the
it's
descendants.
on the link.
All right, I'll have to check that one out. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm. But I was thinking, you know, auburn hair, runs around naked. Who would it sound like?
That sounds like you.
I don't have auburn hair.
Yeah, but you run around naked.
Well, yeah.
Okay, now my turn. I had some interesting Easter stories.
Oh.
For example,
In your Easter vomit?
there was one. Now this was interesting because it's on CNN, and of course CNN, you know, is,
Well, they always tell the truth. You know
but
that.
they are mainstream news versus you know on the side.
Yeah, yeah.
So this one was titled "The Funding of Jesus Who Bankrolled Christ's Ministry."
Even back then, they needed banks.
Jesus tells the rich man in one of his best-known parables, quote, "Sell all that you own and distribute the money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come and follow me." He also said that the poor were blessed, and it was easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than it was for a well-to-do person to enter paradise.
Okay, Jesus was probably smoking something.
However, he told his 12 apostles to leave their day jobs and follow him. So then the question
They had
now,
day jobs?
that's what they claimed. Now he's claiming, now this article claims, how did they support themselves?
Yeah, how?
So apparently, it went on to say that Jesus was in Bethany 6 days before Passover, according to the Gospel of John. A woman named Mary takes a jar of costly perfumed oil and anoints his feet. And Judas asks, why was this perfume not sold for 300 denarii and the money given to the poor? Apparently 300 denarii was the annual wages of a laborer.
That's what I get now.
But Jesus told Judas to leave this woman alone and let her anoint him with this expensive oil. Then it goes on to talk about how that the women who accompanied him, Mary Magdalene, Joanna, the wife of Herod's steward Chuza,
I was there?
and Susanna, and they don't say who she is, they provided for...
Oh, Susanna. That's who she was. They sang this song.
The song they sing? They provided for Jesus out of their own resources. And that said that, according to Luke, that's what it says, women whom Jesus had healed in turn provided for him out of their own resources.
So he was like their pimp.
Jesus was an upper-class woman married to a man who was intelligent and capable enough.
Joanna was.
Joanna?
You said Jesus.
Oh, did I? Okay, Joanna was an upper-class woman married to a man who was intelligent and capable enough to manage the complicated household of Herod Antipas, the son of Herod the Great. Then apparently, after Jesus' death, supposedly, the crucifixion, she was one of the trio of women who went to his tomb and found it empty.
Who, Mary Magdalene?
No, they're still talking about Joanna.
Oh, Joanna.
She was one of the trio of women. There were 3. Then it goes on to say that Mary Magdalene was free to roam the country with Jesus. And that they also, according to Mark Goodacre, who is a professor of New Testament and Christian origins at Duke University, claims that Mary Magdalene also provided for him out of her own means. And then he also said women like Joanna and Susanna, that these were the people that made his mission viable. And then men like Joseph of Arimathea and Nicodemus were both men of stature and wealth, and they may have chipped in to fund Jesus' ministry. Now, I think this is interesting, how now they're going from talking about Jesus being impoverished and preaching to the poor, now they're talking about there was money backing his ministry.
And he had like all his hoes, he was pimping with them.
Something was going on, but the point is there's like this change now from people being poor and Jesus being poor, and maybe he wasn't
right.
so
If
poor.
you remember a few months ago, they said he actually was not born in a stable.
Yes.
He was born in a nice house where his family owned.
Right, and then, of course, bit by bit, they start releasing this information. We always see things released around Easter time. And on this same article, apparently there's a new series out called Finding Jesus, and several religious authorities claim that it was unlikely that Jesus was unmarried.
Right.
It was more likely that he had a wife and children. And these are from high-level scholars.
And one was in Notre Dame, wasn't it?
One was from Notre Dame.
Which is Catholic.
And there was a rabbi also on here. Several religious figures.
And if I recall, he said that means, if this is true, which it is, that there are people walking around with DNA.
His genetics.
I think.
They've been reading your stuff. Reading your stuff.
I think so.
So I found that one interesting. Then there was also another interesting story that was actually on that near that same page. There's a link will be posted. But it was about masked and hooded penitents across Spain and Portugal. Now, every year at Easter time, they show all kinds of people doing all kinds of things. On Good Friday, basically, that's where the quote-unquote celebrations start, carrying the crosses and so forth. This particular article, and I've watched this news for many years, as have you, but in this particular article, they had women with purple veils on. You couldn't see their faces. They had men in purple hoods with their eyes. They had men in white hoods. Everything was hooded and masked. I have never seen that before. Have you?
Well, sometimes I dress like that.
I'm talking about on the news regarding the Easter stories.
No, I didn't see that.
And this, have you ever seen this before on the news?
No.
It was over everything. So look at this link and tell me what you think. Because who else are we seeing like this? We're seeing the Muslim executioners, the Muslim fighters, and on top of that, there were rumors, and this, from what I could tell, was false, but I just want to put it out there because this is how things get started on the internet. There were rumors that Georgia passed a new law saying that the people could be killed by the guillotine.
In the U.S.,
In
Georgia?
the U.S. However, there's a lot, it's not done. It's a rumor, but the thing is we're seeing the beheadings. And people are taking this back to the book of Revelations, the end times, and all of that. So, they put out these things bit by bit for people to follow, and it starts building up within them. It adds to the collective unconsciousness. It adds to the disinformation. It adds to the lies.
Correct.
But people have this fear, and then pretty soon what they fear, they create. So, anyway, I thought that was exceedingly interesting. Then there was also another very fascinating story, and again, I'm looking at, what's behind the scenes. It was, the title was Deceased Dad Added to Family Photo.
Oh, I saw that one.
Yeah, and apparently, back in July, there was a lady, Sierra Sherry, and a young man named Lane Smith, who were just about ready to become parents. She was 8 months pregnant, and unfortunately, the father had an accident and died. And
he was young.
He was very young. And I don't have his age, but I think it was like early 20s.
I think he was 26.
And anyway, of course, she had the child, and she was without the father. And because of this issue, she was so sad because there was really no family photo of her and the baby and the dad. So there was a photographer who took a picture and made him kind of like a ghost and put him into the...
Well, he photoshopped an old picture of him.
But it made him look like a ghost.
Yeah.
And remember, I've been telling you that they're starting to bring in more of this astral, make it more acceptable kind of thing. And to me, this is another way of doing it because, again, now the families aren't just alive and dead. They're blended alive and dead. It's this one and the same. So anyway, apparently social media became a sensation. On Facebook, she got like almost 200,000 likes and about 25,000 shares. People sharing the photo. So I found that interesting for that reason. Of course, my condolences to the family, but I still feel like they're being used. And it's part of something that will become more commonplace because that's part of astral ritual. Now, you probably heard of the religious freedom law that was passed in Indiana.
Right, it was a big problem.
A big problem. Apparently, March 26th by Governor Mike Pence. And this law would allow an individual or corporation to cite religious beliefs as a defense when sued by a private party for denying services to lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender persons. The law has already attracted backlash by people in Indiana, saying that they would not discriminate.
Yeah.
But it's,
And your homeland was also involved. Because
Washington
the
State?
mayor of Seattle said he would not send any of his workers to Indiana until the law was changed.
Yeah. Now, Indiana is, again, kind of like a neutral, it's an odd state, but I mean, I don't have anything against Indiana. It's just kind of a plain state.
It's a weird state.
But the thing is that the fact that this is a test for other things, trust me. So they're bringing this forward as a religious freedom. It's in the heartland of America. So you want to think about the significance of that as well. Now, the same day that happened, there was a man, Bill Levin. Did you hear about him?
Maybe not.
Okay. He is establishing the first church of cannabis in Indianapolis.
Really?
Yes. Now, apparently they had, unfortunately I didn't take the man's name down, but if you go to the link, you'll find it. There was a gentleman who was talking against the church, of course, but he was saying that apparently federal law was passed for Native Americans, many years ago, because they used peyote during their religious ceremonies, right? So they're bringing that back into, I think he might have said the Navajo Nation, I'm not sure. So anyway, he's bringing that up because the first church of cannabis wants to use cannabis for its sacrament. Now, again, I talked about this last week. The Indians, Native Americans, indigenous peoples, they technically are their own countries, and you and I were talking about that the other day. They have their own tribal police, and I don't know what they are now, but when I was growing up, they had their own license plates because they were a different country.
We were on a reservation last night.
We were. However, the thing that gets me is that he's saying that the federal law was passed so that the Native Americans, indigenous people, would not be persecuted for religious. So now they want to extrapolate that according to the cannabis church, which again, we're talking two different nations, which they're crossing that line now. And so once they start crossing the line in one thing, they're going to cross it in the other. So keep your eye out on what's going to be happening to the indigenous people and where their nations as well. Not that they haven't already been encroached upon, and what can they do about it, but it's out there. So anyway, Bill Levin established this first church of cannabis. He has more than 16,000 likes on his Facebook page.
More than 16 billion in a little bit.
Yeah, and he's a character, but I think he's a plant. If you want to know, so that again to test the law, he claims that. Now listen to this: that people are burnt out on the old religion.
That's true.
So his religion is based on love, compassion, health, and happiness. They have no heavy doctrine.
No.
They're not going to have the 10 Commandments, but they're going to have 12 pathways to life.
Right.
And of course, cannabis will be the sacrament.
Right.
Now, the thing I want to remind people of, which you and I talk about, is for satanic ritual, that drugs and the astral are always used as entry codes to the astral world. So first of all, we get the people riled up over cannabis. We manage to legalize it. Now we've got a church that's coming into play. And it's going on into melding and bringing forth, in my opinion, the New World religion.
There's a lot of weird stuff going on in Indiana.
Yes, I think it's very odd.
Somebody got to put a fence around that stuff.
Not only that, but they're bringing up the Native Americans, which of course they used to call Indians, which now that's politically incorrect.
Right.
So now we have an Indian state.
Indiana. That's what it is.
Right. And it's in Indianapolis at this church, and we're talking about the peyote. So the fellow that they bring in is the government person who's saying, because one person's saying, is he really going to get away with this? And he's citing this federal law that was passed for the Native Americans, saying, well, they just might. So keep your eye out on this, because I think it's an important story. Then my last story, which is probably my least interesting one, but I brought it forward anyway. That is about drug-resistant food poisoning. They're claiming this now in the U.S. And food poisoning, people can die from it. I mean, it can be a very bad thing. Well, now they have one. It's called Shigella.
Ooh, sounds like something else.
Or kind of remind me of the Morgellons disease, the way they spelled it, Shigella. So I don't know. It's got to have some meaning in there. We'll find that one out for you. Anyway, it says it's causing major problems for people across the country because it is a new multi-drug resistant strain of food poisoning.
In other words, they made it and released it into the public.
Yeah, they're claiming that it's coming to the U.S. from India, the Dominican Republic, and Morocco.
I got food poisoning in Morocco.
So they're bringing it actually from 3 different continents. to bring it into the U.S. So, of course, what I've been telling you is eventually they want you to not trust any food, but to get your food from the government. So, I think that, even though they're saying it's food poisoning, then pretty soon they'll say, oh, somebody got it from food in the U.S., and
well,
then...
food in the U.S. is poison anyway.
But the point is they want to scare people into only getting food from the government.
Yeah.
So with that said, we just want to remind you that our April Addicted to Addictions, Get Hooked on Health Instead, April Healing Seminar is right around the corner.
April 11th, I will be in Bucks County, Pennsylvania at the Free Your Mind Conference.
Right. If you purchase your ticket online, use coupon code EXPANSIONS for a 20% discount. Then we don't really have anything...
Well, you mentioned the end of April, our conference.
Right.
Then May I go into my secret mission to Mexico.
Okay.
Then you go on your secret mission to Italy.
Right.
And then...
We both have a secret mission in July.
In July, very secret mission. Both of us, yeah.
And then in August...
I have the radionics seminar.
We have the radionics.
We have.
The radionics seminar. Now the radionics boxes will soon be listed on the site. So if you're wanting one of those, let Patricia know. We'll get your name on the list.
And hurry up because it takes time to make them.
Yes, and we're going to be devoting our first come, first serve to those who sign up for the August seminar.
Right.
So if you're interested in the August seminar, we need to know. Talk to Patricia.
It's all on the site.
And, well, it's getting on the site right now. But talk to Patricia if you don't find it on the site, but it will be on the site, like hopefully sometime this week. And so we can get a box reserved for you. We'll need to know if you want a 3-dial or a 6-dial because they're being made specifically for the owner.
Right.
And they're amazing. So August 14th, 15th, and 16th is our workshop where if you want to come to that, you'll come and claim your box. We'll teach you how to use it. We'll teach you how to boost your mind patterns. It will be for health, wealth, relationships, career, pets, deprogramming.
Just say everything.
They don't know what everything is. I have to
They're
tell
not that
them.
dumb.
I have to tell them. Protection, but we also have to tell you it's for entertainment purposes only. So remember that.
Right.
Then,
don't forget the webinars.
Yeah, well, yeah, we have webinars. Spring cleaning is coming up right around the corner. That ties into my blog of soul cleansing and self-cleaning. So it's very important work we're doing in the month of April. Then we have one on birth mother, earth mother. Then we have one on father, father's son, father's son. S-O-N-S-U-N.
And then we did. And then, of course, September's kind of, we don't know yet.
We don't know.
But I'll be going somewhere, probably.
And then October, we have our Hidden Mysteries Digging Deeper. Dr. Samir Osmanagic, discoverer of Bosnian pyramids. Mary Sutherland, who is paranormal tour operator, researcher, writer, author of a million things from Burlington, Wisconsin, will be here as well.
Right, and then I go to Berlin and Poznan.
Yeah, in Poland.
I've been invited back to Singapore, which I don't know when that's going to be.
Yeah. Well, I have lots of things. So something's going on almost every month this year so far. So it's been very busy.
I just don't even unpack my suitcase anymore.
Very busy. So, anyway, with that said...
Yeah, so hopefully I'll see you very soon.
Yes, one way or the other, somewhere around the world, or join the webinars right from the comfort of your own home.
Right.
The blogs, like your Facebook pages, you know
just
the drill.
Just like my face.
Yeah, there you go. Because you can't get any better than that. No. All right. So?
All right. So I'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.